Hey guys, ggDoA back with another little preview of some of the cards from Hearthstone Whispers of the Old Gods, and I think we got like 5 or 6 to go through today. It's pretty cool stuff though. We're going to start out with the Worgen Stalker, a new hunter minion, 3 for a 4/2. Battle Cry, give all your minions with Death Rattle in your hand +1/+1. So, it's interesting. I mean, it's not a bad body for the cost. 3 for a 4/2, yeah, he's a little bit fragile, but at the same time, if we're looking at playing sort of a Death Rattle Hunter, which kind of seems, and you'll see this from from one of the other cards we'll look at today, it kind of seems like the way maybe Blizzard is pushing for Hunter. And you see this from time to time, obviously, in every card game where X color or class or what have you is kind of pushed along a certain road, and we had things like Feigned Death before come out for Hunter that made some really, really cool deck possibilities, even though it never became, standard in a tournament sense. But I think this card can synergize well with other stuff that might be coming out in the set. By itself, it's meh, it depends on what you've got in your hand, of course. You can either get a lot of value or not much value at all, but overall, I gotta say I like this card, and I'm definitely going to be putting 2 of them in my Hunter deck when I experiment with kind of a Death Rattle theme for that. So I think it's a cool card, probably one we're going to see. Moving on, Demented Frost Caller. So 4 for a 2/4, it's a mage minion. After you cast a spell, freeze a random enemy character. Now, since this card was announced, I believe Blizzard did clarify that it will prioritize minions, or rather characters that are not already frozen, so you're not going to kind of overlap that way. So in that sense, with a lot of cheap spells, you could theoretically freeze the board. The one thing that I'm not as thrilled about is that it's 4 for a 4/2. Or 4 for a 2/4 rather. We've kind of gotten used to some good 3 for 2/4 minions like Imp Gang Boss and things like that. So 4 for a 2/4 seems a little bit expensive. It kind of, and I don't know. I mean, just freezing something doesn't seem that great per se, especially if you freeze the enemy hero. A lot of times that's not going to give you a lot of value, because what you want to do, I mean, the idea behind this card is obviously to play it in a sense where you can kind of build your own side of the board while keeping their side frozen, and that's going to be a little bit difficult because it's hard to play minions and enough spells in the same turn that you're going to freeze the right thing at the right time. So it's an interesting idea. I think it's kind of a cool concept, but in terms of execution, especially at 4 mana, if it was 3 mana, I think it'd be a little bit more usable. But at 4 mana, it just seems like it comes a little bit too late. In a lot of games, there's going to be a little bit too much on the board. You might not even hit something on the board. You might hit the hero. So I think it's a cool concept, but in the end, I think because the mana cost is a little bit high, and because the ability doesn't necessarily gain you as much board control initially, really, I think that it's probably going to fall by the wayside, but we'll see. Time to move on. Let's take a look at Shifting Shade, a 4 for a 4/3 priest minion. With the Death Rattle, copy a card from your opponent's deck and add it to your hand. So kind of like a little bit of a thought steal in there with a 4 for a 4/3. Cost-wise, not too bad. The 3 health again is a little bit low for the 4 mana, but it's supposed to die, right? I mean, you get the Death Rattle, you get the card from your opponent's deck, and who knows what that's going to be. We've seen Thoughtsteal kind of come in and out of priest decks over the years. It's been a card that's been a lot of fun to watch. I enjoy using it, but it seems to be one of the cards that gets cut from a lot of priest decks early on. When people are making room for other things, when people are fine-tuning their priest decks, it does seem like Thoughtsteal is one of the cards that gets sort of cut here, and I think that Shifting Shade is going to kind of fall into the same category, because while it is a minion, it's a 4/3, which is not, too bad. The card that you get can just be so good for you or so bad for you that it's neat. It can gain you card advantage. It can gain you, a big swing turn, possibly, depending on what you draw. But it's just not guaranteed, and it's just not consistent enough that I think people are going to probably try Shifting Shade a little bit, but I've got a feeling it's going to be like Thoughtsteal, one of those cards that just gets cut a little bit early on. Now, if you're building a fun deck that just is based around stealing everything your opponent has with Thoughtsteal, Mind Vision, Shifting Shade, and all that, absolutely you want to put 2 of these guys in there, because that would just make the deck even more fun, right? If you're just trying to copy and steal all your opponent's spells. So yeah, I think it has a place in a fun priest deck, and to be fair, those kind of priest decks are really fun to play. But in a competitive sense, in the standard competitive sense, I think it might get tried out, but I think it's going to be one of the cards that's probably cut early on when these priest decks start to get a little bit tighter, start to get a little bit more polished. So, yeah, let's move on to Princess Huhurin. Princess Huhurin. I don't know. Huhurin, I think? I can't even remember this character from WoW. But anyway, it's a 5 for a 6/5 Hunter minion. Battle Cry, trigger a friendly minion's death rattle effect immediately. So, remember when we talked about the synergy with the Worgen card a little bit earlier, where he kind of buffs your death rattle minions in your hand? This is another card that you're going to put in that deck, obviously. Able to, if you play this, trigger a Sylvanas death rattle, or even something like a, well, not Piloted Shredder death rattle, because that card's going to be gone out of standard. But the point is that there's a lot of death rattles that you want to trigger so that you can, you know, get the benefit from them. A lot of the big ones right now, you know, Piloted Shredder, Mad Scientist, Dr. Boom, maybe. A lot of that stuff is a Sludge Belcher, I guess. A lot of that stuff is falling out of standard. So we're going to have to think about what new minions are going to come in, what new minions, death rattles we want to trigger with this. But I think it's a great card. I mean, just power value, you get a 6/5 for 5. That's awesome. It's not vulnerable to BGH. It's a little bit stronger than something like a Lotheb. Or an Emperor Thaurissan for 1 less mana, and it just has the potential to have a really, really great board effect right when you play it too. So I think this is going to be a card that a lot of hunters are going to try out in a lot of different decks. I think obviously Death Rattle Hunter is going to be something that's going to come back and people are going to experiment with, and I think this is a great addition to it. So great cost for the mana. Potentially awesome effect, and you can really build a deck that makes this effect awesome much more often than not when you play it. So overall, I think it's a great card, and I'm excited about Princess. Let's move on. Twilight Flamecaller. All right, this card, I haven't seen an English version yet, but this is a translation that we had on Reddit. So Twilight Flamecaller, Battle Cry, deal 1 damage to each enemy minion. So you can kind of think of it a couple different ways. It's kind of like Arcane Explosion, but you get a little minion for 2 more mana. It's kind of like Fan of Knives, but you don't get to draw. You get a 2/2 with your 3 mana for 1 damage to all the enemy minions. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem that strong to me. The idea is that, of course, you're going to clear maybe some of the weaker minions, or, you know, make the minions that are already out there very, very weak as you play this, so that you can get a good board clear, sort of take board presence back in the mage's favor. But the fact that you only get a 2/2 body with this makes me kind of hesitant to wanna play it. It just seems a little bit lackluster for 3 mana, and the Whirlwind effect for mage isn't necessarily, you know, as great as it is in like a class like Warrior or something. Obviously, in Warrior, Whirlwind effects are great. But Mage, and this isn't even really a Whirlwind effect because it doesn't hit your own minions. You know, if this did hit your own minions, you know, or it was like maybe 1 mana cheaper or something, you could even think about maybe a Patron Mage or something like that. But I think overall this card's probably not going to get used that much. The 2/2 body just seems too weak for the 3 mana, and the effect that it does, oftentimes I think, doesn't do enough to warrant putting out a weak minion like a 2/2 to get it for 3 mana, you know? That said, it's really hard to predict these kind of things because, again, you know, we don't know what's going to be changed from Classic. We don't know all of the cards that are going to be in the set yet, although we know quite a few of them now. But I think this one's probably not going to make the cut in a lot of competitive decks. So we'll see. And then Corrupted Claw Handler. This is an awesome card. 6 for a 5/7. So pretty good stats for the mana. Not too bad. You get overall, you know, 6 worth of stats for 6 mana, so that's good. Just 1 extra one gets shifted to the health. Taunt, Battle Cry, give your Cthulhu +3/+3 wherever it is. So it's a card that gives a big buff to Cthulhu. We've seen a lot of +1/+1, +2/+2, but this one gives +3/+3. Unfortunately, it's just a Druid card, so it's going to be in Druid Cthulhu decks only, obviously. And I'm a little bit disappointed about that. It would be such a good neutral card if it was in that pool. It would be in every Cthulhu deck, I think. And as is, I think this actually pushes Druid ahead quite a bit in terms of what class is going to be great with Cthulhu. And obviously there's going to be a lot of testing that's going to need to be done with that before we really figure it out. But a card like this, I think, gives Druid an edge because I mean, it's pretty simple, really. It's got Taunt, it's a great body for the mana, and it gives Cthulhu +3/+3, which is a pretty big buff. So overall, I think one of the best Cthulhu cards that we've seen. And remember, the kind of the theme with Cthulhu cards is that you want to find ways to survive until you get Cthulhu out. So this is a card that does that. It has Taunt, it's big, it's a little bit harder to get rid of. So this is the type of card that you would put in that Cthulhu deck to help you sustain to that big 10 mana Cthulhu turn. So yeah, I think it's an absolutely awesome card. Going to go obviously in every Cthulhu deck. That's really about it for that, and that's it for the cards today too. So thanks for watching. Comment on the video. Let me know what you think about these cards, what you're excited about trying them out in. Follow me on Twitter at ggDoA. Subscribe to the YouTube, and hopefully a lot more content coming in the near future. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.